All right, so we're on to session 9 then, where we'll be talking about building truly inclusive and sustainable societies. We're going to be hearing from the international organizations, the CTU, the UNESCO, and the ILO. The session will be handled by Dr. Sean Thorpe, who is the Associate Professor and Head of School of Computing and Information Technology in the School of Computing and Information Technology at UTech. Dr. Thorpe is president of the Jamaica Computer Society since February 2018, and he holds a PhD degree in information security from the University of Technology as the university's inaugural PhD candidate. The rest of the comprehensive accomplishments of Dr. Thorpe may be found on our conference website. Dr. Thorpe, over to you.
A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. I think this has been a very informative conference. Don't you think so? Yes. I'm actually glad I came. This session 8, I think, is a very, very important one. Session 8, building truly inclusive and sustainable societies. The commitment of regional and international organizations to the social and economic empowerment of persons with specific needs. Our distinguished panel this afternoon will literally look at their own case studies, projects, and initiatives based on their own regions and share with us, what are some of those better opportunities for engaging the community with special needs and ensuring that they remain connected. I was doing a quick review of the 2011 NCD report, which is the National Council on Disabilities report, to the then President Obama, that reflected that as much as we make the deliberate efforts to ensure that all the opportunities are established for special needs communities, they're still treated as a secondary labor market in that when the recession took place in 2008, 2009, special needs communities were the first to go. And when they were bouncing back out of recession, they were the last to be hired. Now, I'm setting the stage for this particular panel to consider some of these things in their own deliberations and to share with us within their own cases. Our distinguished panel, and I'll start in the order that I have the names here. Andrés, did I pronounce that correctly? Andrés Yuren is a senior specialist for employers' activities, ILO regional office in Latin America and the Caribbean. He has over 20 years experience working with international organizations. He's a Mexican lawyer who specializes in the private sector specific to capacity building. Between 1999 and 2006, he moved to Geneva, Switzerland, where he was appointed regional advisor for Latin America and the Caribbean of the International Organization of Employers, which represents the worldwide business community in international labor and social policy forums across the multilateral system, with a specific aim in ensuring that such policy promotes the viability of those businesses. During this period, he was also appointed the coordinator of Business Technical Advisory Committees on Labor Matters, which is a permanent consultative body of the Inter-American Conference of Ministers of Labor. He has a very long CV, I can tell you, but I think he's eminently qualified as one of the subject matter experts to treat with this matter. I'm just going to go quickly by introductions of the parties, and then we just get right into the meat of the matter in the interest of time. Each of the speakers will actually get 8 to 10 minutes to sort of catch up back on some of the time that we have elapsed so far. Now, Bernadette Lewis, Secretary General, Caribbean Telecommunications Union. She was appointed to that position in 2003. Ms. Lewis is the first female appointee in the position. Under her stewardship, the CTU has been transformed into a relevant and vibrant information communication technologies organization. The CTU is now at the forefront of activities to harmonize policies and practices for the development of Caribbean ICT sector and to coordinate regional ICT projects. A strong proponent of ICT-enabled Caribbean development, Ms. Lewis has been advocating the effective use of ICTs by all citizens through an initiative called the Caribbean ICT Roadshow, designed to raise the awareness and educate on the power of ICT to enhance every sphere of endeavor. So we do look forward to an equally eloquent discussion on this matter from the CTU as it relates to how this affects us in the region. And the third speaker, Isabel Vieira Bermudez. Did I get that pronunciation right? Okay, my Spanish is improving. Isabel has worked for UNESCO since 1999, and she has been in charge of designing and implementing communication and information programs to Caribbean countries. Ms. Vieira is experienced in managing UNESCO projects on promoting freedom of expression, media development, knowledge society. Her portfolio includes projects related to the use of ICTs for social development, fostering communication for development at community level, media, information literacy, and ICTs in education policy, among others. She holds an MSc in communication science and a bachelor's in cybernetics. I think we have a very esteemed panel this afternoon who will guide us significantly through the deliberation. So we'll ask Andrés to start first with his 10 minutes, and we move in the order from Andrés to Bernadette and then Isabel. Thank you.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Shan, for that very nice introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the ITU and the Jamaican government for this incredible invitation and gathering in this magnificent venue. Yesterday, during the opening session, we heard about the role that different players have in order to make a more inclusive world. What do governments, advertisers, NGOs, and academia need to do in order to make this happen? So today I would like to share with you the kind of work we're doing within the ILO. To start with, I would like to introduce my organization. Sorry, it's not changing. As Sean mentioned, I work for the International Labour Organization, which is a United Nations Specialist Agencies, as ITU. It was created after First World War with the hope of promoting social justice as the basis for long-standing peace in the world. Today, the objective of the ILO is to promote decent work and sustainable employment as the means to achieve social justice and peace. This mandate has been recently confirmed with the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. And within this framework, the ILO has been appointed the guardian of SDG 8, which seeks to promote decent work and economic growth. What sets the ILO apart from other UN agencies is not only its mandate, but also its unique structure. By a mandate of our Constitution, the ILO is composed by representatives of governments, trade unions, employers, organizations, and from all over the world. This is what we call our unique tripartite structure. It means that in all of our governance bodies, they are integrated by representatives of these three groups, and all of our decision-making process is done with the participation on equal footing of governments, employers, and workers' representatives. We call this process social dialogue. I will talk a little bit more about this later in my presentation. And the next year, we're extremely pleased because the ILO will be celebrating its 100th anniversary, making it one of the oldest agencies of the UN system. Through its long history, the ILO has placed particular focus on working for empowerment of groups with special needs. For example, in the Americas, the ILO is currently involved in two major initiatives regarding women empowerment. One of them is the Equal Pay International Coalition, EPIC, which is a joint ILO, UN Women, and OECD initiative. The other main initiative, or very important initiative, is the Win-Win Gender Equality Means Good Business program. This program is sponsored by the European Union, and it is jointly run by ILO with UN Women. The program's main objective is the economic empowerment of women in 6 countries of the America, including Jamaica. Another example of the ILO work for the protection of people with special needs include the promotion of our Convention 169 on Indigenous People, promotion of youth employment, care of elder population, protection of migrant workers, promotion of micro-entrepreneurs, and the eradication of child labor. However, today I have been asked by our host to make a presentation focused on people with disabilities. And to set the tone of the ILO approach to labor inclusion of people with disabilities, I would like to share the following very short video. Can we put the sound, please?
Not having equal opportunities can put you at the back of the pack. The words "not having equal opportunities" are on a seesaw-like triangle tilting down. They appear within the circle of a wheelchair wheel. In a line moving left, animated silhouettes of people using wheelchairs or straight canes which point forward. For people with disabilities, that can mean navigating additional barriers. The words sway as though they were floating on a choppy sea. Barriers, sidewalks. A wheelchair user approaches a step. Halls and doorways. A wheelchair user rolls to the narrow opening between the W and the A. Information. At print signage, a woman with a cane and guide dog. Question marks appear above the woman's head. Millions of people with disabilities face barriers to finding jobs and getting promoted. A crowd of individuals using canes and wheelchairs. And not just physical barriers. Within a thought bubble, attitudes. Our attitudes also create barriers for people with disabilities. A man holding a sheet sits opposite a woman sitting in a wheelchair. In his thought bubble, misconceptions, negativity, prejudice, ignorance. But did you ever consider the ability factor? A woman with an amputated leg, 3 men appear on each side. 1 in 7 people around the world is disabled. A globe, a wedge, appears within the circle. 15% of the world's population, 1 billion people. You get it, right? That's a lot of people with ability you can factor into your workplace. A counter advances to 1 billion. People with disabilities create diversity. 7 individuals in a row. They include 1 amputee, a wheelchair user, and a figure with dark glasses and a guide dog. And that's good for business. Why? Because people with disabilities improve workplace morale. Figures with smiles can be an untapped resource of skills and talents. A wrench, a light bulb in a thought bubble, and a computer monitor, it reads. It is the ability factor. Elevate customer service. A figure using a wheelchair on a rising platform. A trophy cup appears. And best of all, help increase business opportunities. Figures stride, some using wheelchairs or canes. You see, it's ability, not disability, that counts. In the wheel of a wheelchair, that's the ability factor. International Labor Organization.
Okay, in the picture we're seeing in this slide, we can see a black and white picture of what was the first ILO committee of people with disabilities. This picture was taken in 1921, just 3 years later, after the ILO was established by the League of Nations. In the picture, we can see 10 men. One of them is a wheelchair user, one of them has a cane, and the other one has an amputated hand. So as you can see, the ILO has been in the inclusion business for many years now. However, the way I would like to present the ILO work and the initiatives we have for inclusion is by telling you about the kind of things we're doing with each of our tripartite constituents. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a quite unique tripartite structure where governments from all over the world, together with trade unions and employers organizations, work together towards a common goal. In this regard, when the ILO works with governments, we use a rights-based approach, which means that our main objective is to help governments develop a legal framework and public policies that will allow people to be protected. This rights-based approach is proposed by the ILO after engaging our tripartite constituents in an international dialogue, or what it could be better described as an international negotiation, which seeks to balance the interests of workers, employers, and governments from all over the world. This process we call standard setting, and it's probably what the ILO is best known for. Through its standard setting process, the ILO has adopted international treaties called conventions, which our member countries can subscribe to provide for what is now the international legal framework for labor and social matters. This framework evidently includes our conventions against discrimination, and in particular Conventions 100 and 111, which have been recognized by the international community as fundamental conventions, therefore giving them human rights status. So by monitoring and promoting the ratification and proper application of ILO conventions, the ILO is working towards providing rights to empower people with disabilities against acts of discrimination. However, the ILO believes that legal empowerment is not sufficient. To truly empower people with disabilities, it is necessary to do more. Obviously, giving the rights is very important, but more has to be done. With workers, and in particular with workers with disabilities, ILO proposes their empowerment through the development of skills. A person with disability will only access a job, not only because it is his or her right. As it happens with any other worker, he or she will access a job because he or she has the proper skills to do such a job. And you can bet that this person will do a fantastic job. This is why the ILO promotes advocacy for the establishment of inclusive educational systems and inclusive professional training. Both the general education and professional training systems have to be accessible to people with disabilities if we are truly to empower them. The ILO has developed several tools together with trade unions with the objective of educating people with disabilities about their rights to employment and tools to promote advocacy for the establishment of inclusive educational and professional training systems at national level. And last but not least, the ILO works with the business community through employers' organizations to promote the business case. And it is a business case for hiring people with disabilities. This implies eradicating inadequate assumptions, changing mentalities, and raising awareness of the benefits of diversity in the workplace. In order to do this, we believe that there is nothing better than leading by example, and that is why the ILO has joined forces with many multinational enterprises and with several national employer organizations to create the ILO Global Business and Disability Network. And in order to present the network, I will show another short video.
Companies gain knowledge on how to effectively include people with disabilities in their workforce, both by learning from our guidance, but also in particular learning from each other. The whole logic of the network is to facilitate exchange of information between companies.
You need to have a passion to promote disability at the workplace. And our network is a good example for business to showcase that people with disabilities have equally or better competencies. They are competent, they are capable, and they are committed.
And I think also business leaders, when they see the success stories, they realize that their inaccurate assumptions that they had previously really doesn't work. And in today's day and age, when we're looking at innovation and reimagining and simplification, I think the contribution of persons with disability in this framework is immense.
We've worked to try and promote disability.
The ILO brings together and shares multiple viewpoints on disability issues, which is very valuable for the network's members.
Dow chose a way, but I think there's many other different ways you can go in getting a more diverse culture in a company, and we want to learn from other companies as well. So that's why we collaborate with ILO to get these different perspectives and also learn from that in making things better also for our company.
The members of the ILO Global Business and Disability Network are changing attitudes and company cultures. As workplaces are becoming more diverse and more inclusive, they become more innovative, and that's bringing better business results.
So how does technology build into all this? And where the ILO and the ITU agendas cross paths? Well, from our side, we are convinced that the joint collaboration between the ILO and ITU is today more important than ever. The worldwide debate on the future of work and the promotion of the SDGs makes this collaboration unpostponable. We need more digital technology to better promote that more people are aware of their rights to decent and productive jobs without discrimination. We need more access to the internet to have more people access basic education and professional training. Technology will empower people, in particular people with disabilities, providing them with the necessary skills to access the jobs being offered by the public and the private sector, to promote more businesses that will create more jobs, and to improve the productivity of the existing businesses to generate more wealth in our societies. We need more technology to strengthen the capacities of employment services of ministries of labor, making it easier to connect demand with employment offer, to promote smart and accessible cities which should allow people, workers, to move from one place to another without barriers, or to connect homes with new employment opportunities. And we need more technology to promote the business case for diversity in the workplace, and more technology to allow employers to make the necessary adjustments to the workplace that will allow more people with disabilities to access those jobs and bring their talent to the workplace. On the other hand, I cannot finish my presentation without saying that the ILO is also available to share its long-standing experience of promoting social dialogue. Our experience on social dialogue has facilitated reaching international agreements even among parties with dramatically different views. We are sure that this experience could also be useful to other UN agencies, including the ITU, on the construction of a global normative framework to promote technological inclusiveness. After these 2 days, I leave Jamaica with many new ideas and knowledge. Working for the ILO, an organization that has been fighting against discrimination for the past 100 years, our joint work here in Jamaica has reinforced my conviction that, as mentioned yesterday, non-accessible content equals discrimination, and that inclusiveness is mainstreaming. There is lots that we can achieve together, and I definitely look forward to doing so with our ITU colleagues. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good afternoon, and I'd like to also express my appreciation to the International Telecommunications Union and, of course, the host government of Jamaica for giving me the privilege to be here this afternoon at this very important event. And I am speaking on behalf of the CTU. It is our view that public awareness and education are essential for achieving the goal of ICT for all. And people are really at the heart of what we want to accomplish. It's not so much about the technology, it's wonderful, but it is enabling people to use the technology. And I say the people, I'm talking about every single citizen of every country being able to understand and use the technology. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm just going to give an overview of the work that the CTU, that is the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, the work that it has been doing in promoting ICT for all. And I want to start with a bit of a history of the CTU. It was established in 1989 by the CARICOM heads of government, to be the policy instrument or institution for the region. And we are responsible for producing harmonized ICT or telecommunications policies for the region, and also for building the capacity of member states. And in 2003, we defined a new strategic direction to embrace information and communication technologies so that we are no longer strictly a telecommunications organization, but an ICT organization. And then in 2004, we expanded the membership of the CTU to include private sector and civil society sectors, organizations. And in doing our policy work, we began to recognize that policymakers did not have the information they needed about the evolution of ICT to enable them to make good decisions. We found that there was a dearth of understanding of how the technology was evolving, the implications for policy, for legislation and regulations, and the potential of ICT to have an impact on national and regional development. And so we instituted ICT for public officials. In 2004, we inaugurated the Caribbean Ministerial Strategic ICT Seminars for senior public servants, for ministers. And what we did was we actually took them to technology labs. And while we were there, we spoke about how the technology was evolving and what they needed to do to enable to leverage the potential of the technology. And to date, we've conducted 17 such seminars. And as we were talking to the ministers, and remember too, I said we expanded the membership of the CTU to include private sector and civil society organizations, we began recognizing that if we want to see widespread adoption, we had to reach out to the citizens and ordinary people. And in 2009, we inaugurated the Caribbean ICT Roadshow, and we felt we were hearing our leaders talking about ICT being an enabler for advancing social and economic development, and yet there was a general lack of awareness about the technology. We also found that there was a dearth about how you use the technology effectively and the innovation that must accompany the technology, and also the weak ICT adoption. So we said we would do these roadshows, and the roadshow was an initiative designed to educate and raise awareness, to change mindsets, and seed activities related to ICT that would bear fruit in the future. Each Caribbean ICT Roadshow was uniquely crafted for each country it visited, because countries were at different stages of development. They had different circumstances on the ground. So we would actually do a lot of research into the countries and talk about what are the challenges. How can ICT transform this country? How can ICT make a difference? So we embarked on the Caribbean ICT Roadshow. Our objective was to reach the widest possible cross-section of the citizenry in every country. So we spoke to senior policymakers, industry regulators, business leaders, civil society, farmers, youth, adults, seniors, everyone, fisherfolk, farmer. We went out to them, we met with them and explained the technology in the context of what they did. Thus far, we have done 24 roadshows in 19 Caribbean countries. Then in 2013, we inaugurated our ICT for People with Disabilities initiative, and it was the very first such initiative was held here in Jamaica in 2013, and we sought to raise awareness of the ICT tools that are available for empowering people with disabilities in the Caribbean. And every year thereafter, we've had workshops demonstrating to people with disabilities tools that are readily available and how they could be incorporated in everyday life to transform and really empower people with disabilities. So we've done about 11, we visited I think 11 countries with workshops for the young people and adults, for the deaf and the blind thus far. And you would have heard, I think, perhaps this morning about our Caribbean Video Assistance Service, which provides communication services for the blind and the deaf. I heard Kamar, I think, asking about the issue with the banking and how he communicates with his bank. This is a service that is tailor-made for such circumstances. You would have heard about it. And then we have, in the next slide, we've been involved with girls in ICT, young people, indigenous people, seniors, and every community in many countries to raise awareness and educate. And Andrés as well, I heard him talk about changing mindsets, raising awareness, educating. This is an important first step that must be taken. So all in all, if we're going to really bring ICTs to the point where there's widespread adoption amongst all of the communities across, for every citizen in the region, there needs to be a continuous public awareness and education program. It's not a static thing. It's not one and done. It's the technology is changing rapidly, and consequently, it's a continuous process of public awareness and education. Then the language has to be appropriate for the audience. It has to be audience specific. So what I tell a minister is going to be very different from what I tell the farmer, the fisherfolk, the man in the street, the ICT manager. So the messages have to be tailored, and there has to be a systematic, progressive program of education, because the technology is changing and things are becoming more advanced and more complicated. So you have to be constantly reviewing those messages and getting the message out there. It's multi-stakeholder participation. The CTU cannot do this by itself. The ILO cannot do this by itself. UNESCO cannot do it by itself. It's a multi-stakeholder collaborative effort that is necessary on a continuing basis. And we also believe that governments must be early adopters of ICT. They must use it effectively to interact with its citizens, to deliver services to the citizens. And when a citizen is forced to use ICT, I don't want to use the word forced, but when they have to use ICTs for getting the services they need, this catalyzes a process, right? And it shows the commitment of the government. It is an encouragement to the private sector. It is an encouragement to the citizen. If I could use ICT to get my pension or do this or do that, what else can I do it for? And consequently, we really believe that governments must be an early adopter of ICTs, and that is going to help catalyze this process and bring us closer to the aim of ICT for all. And with that, I thank you all. And somebody was changing my slide.
Good afternoon. I would like again to start by thanking ITU and the government of Jamaica for organizing this excellent and important event, and for inviting UNESCO to present in this activity. As I was correctly presented, I am Isabel Vieira Bermudez. I'm the advisor for communication and information in the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, which is based in Kingston, here in Jamaica. And we serve 20 English and Dutch-speaking countries in the Caribbean, all of them small island developing states. As you might know, UNESCO is a United Nations specialized agency, same as my colleague from ILO and also ITU. And our mandate includes promoting freedom of expression and universal access to information. UNESCO has five major programs, which are education, the science, including social science and natural science, culture, and communication and information. All UNESCO sectors work together, and also with other UN agencies, with the government, with universities, with civil societies, and so on. And all sectors are committed to work for the inclusion and empowerment of persons with disabilities through education, the science, culture, communication, and information. So I will refer to the work done by the Communication and Information Program, as it is the one that is related to access to information and knowledge using ICTs for persons with disabilities. UNESCO's vision is the creation of knowledge societies that are inclusive, pluralistic, equitable, open, and participatory for all citizens. Therefore, the organization works to increase awareness and mobilize support for the recognition of dignity, the rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities, and to build on the benefits of their integration in the whole society. So, in this regard, UNESCO is working under 6 thematic priorities that, were in the previous slide, and that are in this slide, and that now I'm going to go into each of these priority quickly because I'm aware of the time, and explain a little bit of each of them. So there are the 6 thematic priorities in which UNESCO is basing a plan of action to work together with the governments in promoting access to ICTs and the use of ICTs for persons with disabilities. So the first thematic priority is about research and evidence-based data collection. We believe that indeed it is very important to conduct research and have access to accurate data in order to better inform the development initiatives that are inclusive for persons with disabilities. Data statistics, monitoring, analysis, and evaluation of information are crucial to advancing concrete efforts to mainstream people with disabilities in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. In this light, UNESCO has undertaken various initiatives to improve evidence-based data collection and research. An example of this is the global report, Opening New Avenues for Empowerment, ICTs to Access Information and Knowledge for Persons with Disability. This report was published in 2013 and is the result of collaboration between researchers, public and private organizations, governmental bodies, and civil society. It combines the findings of 5 evidence-based regional studies that looked at the use of information and communication technologies by persons with disabilities to access information and knowledge. The report can be found on the internet. So, the second thematic priority is about policies and strategies on inclusion for persons with disabilities. UNESCO recognized the need for member states to have legislations, policies, and strategies that are inclusive of persons with disabilities. Although many countries have ratified the 2006 UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and have legislation that is non-discriminatory, much work still needs to be done to protect their rights and to encourage policies and strategies that are equitable for all and which foster the availability of accessible ICTs. And while policies promoting accessibilities may be in place in some countries, in many of them, these are not backed up by the regulations that will ensure their implementation. The challenge is to mainstream a disability perspective in all actions, including legislations, policies, and programs in all areas and all levels of development planning. The third priority is about building an enabling environment. UNESCO considers it crucial to create an environment that favors inclusion into the world around persons with disabilities so they can live to their full potential and make their contribution to society. The 2006 UN Convention sets out the ground rules for the rights of people with disabilities and the steps that need to be taken to include them and empower them. ICTs have the potential to make significant improvement in the lives of all, and in particular, in the lives of persons with disabilities, allowing them to enhance their social, political, and economic integration in society by enlarging the scope of information and knowledge and activities available to them. The next thematic priority is about international advocacy, cooperation, and partnership. UNESCO advocates for the inclusion of persons with disabilities in the society, respecting human rights, principles, and values, and encourages member states to draw up national plans of action for inclusive and sustainable development. The organization does this through international and regional conferences, national forums, consultations and workshops, production and distribution of resources, and networking of relevant stakeholders, as well as partnerships with bilateral and multilateral partners, including the UNESCO National Commissions for UNESCO, governmental organizations, universities, and so on, private sector and civil society, as well as other UN system organizations. Events such as the International Day of Persons with Disability, which will be celebrated next week, December 3rd, and others also serve to raise awareness of the issues around disability and to move away from the association of disability with stigma, charity, medical treatment, and social protection. The next, so the development of appropriate tools and resources for inclusion. ICT can play a crucial role in improving the life of persons with disability, but they are faced with a variety of obstacles, including financial barriers relating to the cost of devices, hardware and software, lack of accessibility, and physical constraints. However, new trends in science and technology innovation have enabled ICT applications to better meet the needs of people with disabilities. They have increased access to education, information, accessible products and services, provided new employment opportunities, helped raise awareness, and facilitated participation by persons with disabilities in cultural and political life, recreation, and leisure. Yet, there's much to do in this regard. So last but not least, capacity building. UNESCO believes that everybody should have the opportunity to acquire the skills necessary in order to understand, participate actively in, and benefit fully from the emerging knowledge societies. In terms of persons with disability, this involves not only moving towards inclusive ICTs, but also capacity building for all stakeholders, including the training of teachers, ICT professionals, and the development of digital material that is accessible. It also includes helping governments to formulate disability-inclusive policies and strategies and development programs. and the capacity of persons with disabilities to take advantage of the opportunities that they can offer them in terms of access to knowledge and information. To end, I will invite you to access the online publication, Digital Empowerment, Access to Information and Knowledge Using ICTs for Persons with Disabilities. The address is there. I believe that you will receive the PowerPoint, so you will have it there. And to conclude, I would like to quote Ms. Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, in her message on the occasion of International Day of Persons with Disabilities, when she says, "The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development promises to leave no one behind, because development will not be sustainable if it is not based on human rights and fundamental freedoms for all. To build more resilient societies, we must place the rights of persons with disabilities at the heart of our efforts to enable every woman and man to make the most of the opportunities for personal fulfillment." Thank you.
All right, so 3 very good, enlightening presentations. We are now going to open the floor for any questions and answers for our panelists. So if persons have questions, please feel free to step forward. We have 3 to 4 minutes of questions. All right, thank you. So if there are questions, any questions? Panelists, I'm going to ask you to use your, just in case. No questions? Okay, see 2 hands coming up. Yes. And then there's a gentleman afterwards. Yes. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Anthony Hamilton, the Vice President of Civil Society Bahamas, and also a commissioner for the Commission for Persons with Disabilities in the Bahamas. The question is in regard to how is accountability guaranteed to the citizens of the Caribbean of each of the organizations represented with regard to persons with disability?
Who's going to take that question? Yes. Probably you could repeat the question once more, just in case they didn't get it, please.
Fine. I don't know if I should frame it differently, but primarily we're talking about how is accountability guaranteed to the citizens of the How is accountability guaranteed to the citizens of the Caribbean for the mandate of each of the organizations represented, and that's specifically to persons with disability?
Yeah. Yes, thank you for your question. Well, from UNESCO, we go together with the governments to work at the policy level in creating those legal frameworks that will enable persons with disabilities to achieve all these their full life goals. We are intergovernmental organization, so we do work together with the government for this. In particular, we are implementing the Information for All program in the Caribbean, which is at this moment being strengthened. We just had a meeting in San Martin and with the Western and Northern Caribbean countries. And previously we had one in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States. And one of the priorities that the Information for All program has is about accessibility. So we are now outlining our plan of action to work on this issue in the following 3 years, so from 2019 to 2021.
Okay.
I hope that answers, hopefully.
Conrad Harris, Jamaica Society for the Blind. My question is for Andrés. For the projects that you fund or support or cooperate with, is there any requirement, for example, your gender project or your youth project, is there any requirement that persons with disabilities are included?
Thank you for your question. As I mentioned in my presentation, we are an organization which is integrated by 3 parties, employers, workers, and governments. And normally the ILO technical cooperation program is constructed under demand of these parties. So for us, in order to work on a certain issue, it must come from a request directly either from the Ministry of Labor or the trade union, the national trade union, or the employer organization of the country. As a global proposal, we have the network, which I presented, and we constantly are inviting the business community to get involved and to try to promote the issue at national level. But it really much depends on our constituency whether or not the ILO works on the issues of disabilities in a certain country.
Okay. All right, no more questions? Okay. Mr. MC, if permission, just to let me ask one quick question. I'm very curious. In the university myself, I do have students with special needs who are going through programs of study. Are there any use cases that support internship, active internship programs in terms of skills-based area in ICT and otherwise, that when these youngsters leave colleges or high schools, they can intern for the purposes of gaining employment? I think I heard someone earlier ask a similar question from Barbados, but I'm just putting my spin to it. Do you have any such evaluated use cases? If anyone can answer this one, I'm just throwing it out. I'm the least qualified here to answer questions, so I'm just...
Well, we also have initiatives with companies to promote internships. And but I would have to say that we haven't put a special focus on issues of disabilities. But I think that this is something that every day more is becoming more important for the business community as it becomes more obvious of the benefits of diversity in the workplace. And therefore, it's important also to include people with disabilities, not only at the workforce, but also in the apprenticeships. I think that's also an important aspect.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
So for UNESCO, even that we work more at the policy level, but we had in Jamaica an experience with UTech, with the School of Business and Administration, I believe, and it was about an initial survey about students with deaf students, so we could support the programming of apps that can help them in distance learning. So it was done, as I mentioned, with Dr. Golding, and it was the first phase of the project, was the survey to know then how will we move with this programming of apps.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in the interest of time, one more question. Okay, please indulge.
This question is to the Andrés and Isabella. EduLibre come from Barbados. In Barbados, we use the tripartite arrangement as well, and that has made significant inroads for a lot of the underrepresented groups like persons with disabilities. And I'm wondering if the ILO and UNESCO, because the CTU said that they have opened their membership to facilitate civil society. And we've seen the example where international disability organizations are working with other UN systems and are able to participate and bring the civil society into the arrangement, the partnership arrangement. Do you think that such can happen with the ILO and UNESCO to really enable us a bit more as civil society to participate and access a bit more of your programming?
I think an important part of our work as an office, as the International Labour Office, is also to educate our constituents. And that's what we try to explain to them, to employer organizations and to trade unions, as to the importance of the topic. But at the end of the day, as I said, it's up to them to actually pick up the topic and ask the ILO for the technical cooperation. I forgot to mention that in the ILO Global Business and Disability Network, we do have also participation of organizations of people with disabilities also participating and contributing to the exchange of information and learning process. And that's how we try to include this the civil society as well. But our constitution is very clear. I mean, we have three constituents. It's governments, workers, and employers. And in order to have other topics from other groups, we need to include them through those organizations.
I will take that as a very good suggestion. So we will try to include more the civil society and the representation of these groups into actually the planning process, because they are included in the implementation, but sometimes not so much in the previous planning and organization processes. So yes, we will do that. Thank you.
Hello? Yes, I just wanted to add that we have working along with us members, people with disabilities, blind and deaf, who come along with the CTU and help in exposing other people with disabilities to the tools, the ICT tools that are available. And I think early next year we'll be doing a training the trainer program for the deaf and the blind, how the tools that are available, the technology tools that are available, and how you use them. And this is a program that we'll be doing in Guyana. But it is, we really believe that this public awareness, there are many systems and tools that are available, readily available, but people don't necessarily know about them. And someone mentioned we cannot afford to take things for granted. And this is one of the lessons that we've learned. We can't assume that people know. We have to be very actively involved in discussion and dialogue with them so that we could understand where they are and help, help work with them to produce the systems that would improve the quality of lives of people with disabilities.
All right. On that basis, I think we have concluded. We have exhausted. I still see a hand going up, but can you make it very, very quick, because I think we're out of time?
Hi, my name is Kamar Groves. I had a question for the deaf person. We envision to have a small organization with using ICT, but we need something that relates to technology to be implemented to help the processing. So we need dialogue to be included in the process, and maybe like through JCPD or other organizations. Have you had dialogue with them?
not exactly sure what the acronym is, but when we develop a program...
Sorry, the question was for UNESCO. The question was for UNESCO.
I'm sorry.
So I understand that the question is about how can you propose a project for funding or something like that? Yes. Okay. So, well, UNESCO is not exactly, it's not a funding agency, it's a UN specialized agency, but we do have certain windows for project proposals of grassroots level. So for that, you would have to approach our office, and we can initiate a discussion to see if it's possible to have a project, and then we will help in looking for partnerships with donors that can actually support the project implementation. Yeah.
All right. Okay, on that basis, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for your diligent audience. I'd like to thank our distinguished panel for engaging this evening, and I wish you all a pleasant evening. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks again to the panelists for such an informative discussion. All right, now one or two announcements. Session 10, the interactive session, has been moved to tomorrow morning, Friday, and we're going to ask that we come out a bit earlier to begin this session at 8:45, all right? So session 10, the interactive session, is now being moved to tomorrow morning, and we're going to be beginning at 8:45. With that said, we have one session to go, which would be session 9, Women and Girls in ICT, Empowering Women and Girls Through Technology and Skills Development, Sustainable Development Goal 5. Before we talk about session 9, with one session to go, again, I ask your assistance in helping me to make a decision. Do we go into session 9, or would we go for the coffee break and return for session 9? What shall it be? I'm sorry? Keep going. Sounds good. All right. Cleveland, may I just ask you to join me and say a little bit about the event for this evening?
Okay, thank you. Just some quick announcements. First, thank you for staying on. We know it's a long day, and the idea of having to stay on now rather than take the coffee break, I think it's a good decision.